What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark, MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic, and today we're going to talk about The Penguin, Season 1, Episode 4. This is a recap episode, and this is still available on Max with audio description. It's done by International Digital Center, written by Dakota Green, narrated by Ren Leach. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, surprise. I think The Penguin is one of the best series of the year. Definitely the best thing that's going on right now. That's currently airing. Easily one of the best series. It has one of the best pilots I've ever seen. And I'm trepidatiously saying it might be one of the best TV series of the century so far. You know what I'm saying? Like since 2000. Just the way that it's structured with its cast, and what it's able to lay out, and tonally, just really how far removed it is from what you would expect a comic book adaptation to do and be. Matt Reeves' The Batman already sort of dipped its toes into, let's take this seriously. And The Penguin is actually even going even further with that. To the point where even when we get to Arkham, like the most comic bookish character we see there is Magpie, who doesn't even feel like do you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, considering all the Bat villains that exist in the world, like Magpie didn't feel like anything. Magpie just felt like, well, that's, you know, I feel like that's somebody who could have been in Batman the Animated Series for, like, as a secondary villain for one episode. You know, it doesn't even feel like a fully fleshed. It's just somebody who's in Arkham. So, for people who are wondering what do we do with at the end of episode 3, because we left in such a hot mess. Penguin jumped in that car, drove away. They left Sophia there, and we didn't even hear the conversation that had happened. So we were all like, okay, so this next episode is going to be nuts. So what they did a really smart thing here, where they pulled back and they were like, let's talk about Sophia. And so this, like, Kristen Milioti just took over the show. just. Colin Farrell is giving an absolutely exceptional performance, but Kristen Milioti in this episode is flawless. This is absolutely her FYC episode. I can't imagine anybody would not submit this as her Emmy consideration. I can't imagine anybody would watch this episode and not nominate her. I don't even know. We have months of television left. I don't see a way in which she doesn't get nominated. Yeah, I think her performance is better than what won for last year. I think she's so far leaps and bounds ahead, and this episode shows you it. She's outdoing anything I've ever actually seen her do before, and she's been good before, and stuff like Made to Love. So it's not like she is somebody who we've seen do, like, well, it's trying to think of, like, I can't think of the guy's name. But Red Rocket, that guy's acting career is like, so when he showed up for a performance, people are like, wow, dude, you can actually act? Like, I feel like his awards are mostly out of surprise. Like, oh my God, this dude can actually act. He can actually do a performance. Good job. You know? Sort of like if Pauly Shore's Richard Simmons movie actually turned out to be something, I feel like people would just, like, their minds would be blown. If you look at the kind of, like, feedback that Pamela Anderson's getting for The Last Showgirl, it's like that, where people are like, oh my God, she's actually really good. Like, so it's not like that. Kristen Milioti is not in that boat. She's just somebody who has quietly operated in Hollywood, and then somebody was like, what if we put her in The Penguin? And then it just ends up being, like, the absolute perfect casting, and she is nailing this role. And this episode is hers. It deals with mental health. It deals with, um, it answers the question of, was Sophia the hangman? All of that. So we cut back to a young Sophia. I don't know if I'm going to tell this 100% linearly. We do see, it does pick up sort of basically where we left off with Penguin and Sophia, and he's like, I'll, this line about like, I'll show you that you can trust me. And then Shora Gadashlu pulls up. I forget her character name, but I know her actress name. I love Shora. Shora Gadashlu is a name that it's like she's got an Oscar nomination, but I feel like most people, they're just like, oh, that lady with the voice. And it's like, please watch House of Sand and Fog. um, so she shows up and that whole thing happens, and she tells so Sophia is fully aware of what Penguin has done. Like, she does not hold back on any of the clues because she thinks Penguin has betrayed her. So this is obviously not something that Penguin has set up, because it benefits him not, unless they're just going to shoot Sophia in the head. You know what I'm saying? Like, unless they were like 2 seconds away from doing that. And but then again, it would be like a James Bond villain moment where it's like, why are you even talking? You know, like, why is this even happening? Who is this for then? So I think it absolutely was just like they thought Penguin had turned their backs on. Um, and then so Penguin leaves, and we get a flashback episode where we see Sophia as a young child, wandering through the big Falcone mansion, and I think she's playing hide and seek with her brother, but she ends up finding her mom hanging dead, from a presumed suicide, which, as the episode moves on, we know is not. Um, but she ends up founding an organization for women's mental health, to support women's mental health, that's founded in the memory of her mother. And we see even her father, Carmine, who in this series, because they were not willing to work around John Turturro's schedule, they just recast him. They, claim he's too busy to have done the Penguin. I was like, he was too busy to do one episode. He must be, there must be more episodes with Mark Strong, and they just don't want to say it, because I'm like, he was too busy to do one episode of, really, like, you guys couldn't have. I mean, I thought Kevin Costner's request of Yellowstone, the whole reason why we haven't finished Yellowstone, the whole thing that stopped production, when he wanted to do like he only wanted to do like 2 weeks of production. I was like, that's a bit much, dude. You're the lead of the show. But I feel like they could have shot, unless there's more, unless he's in more episodes later on. This is not that hard. Like, I feel like John Turturro had this in his schedule. I don't believe that. He has to be in more episodes than this. So Mark Strong is taking over Carmine Falcone, and he does a good job. It's not John Turturro. Like, I legitimately thought John Turturro deserved an Oscar nomination. The problem is, I also thought Colin Farrell deserved an Oscar nomination. Neither of them did, but I would have voted for both of them had I been an Oscar voter that year. I thought they both had exceptional performances coming out of the Batman. And he's supportive, so supportive, in fact, that he sees Sophia as being the future of the family, and tells her that. So we see that Sophia was tapped, actually, to be the next one, that he wasn't that happy with Alberto, who did kind of seem aloof in a couple scenes that we had before his sister was put away. He wasn't really paying. It's clearly, he didn't want this to be his thing. His dad was like, "Did you do that thing?" He was like, "I'll do it tomorrow." I'm like, it's just like, okay. So yeah, Sophia was the reliable one. She gets approached by a reporter, Summer something, who says, hey, I love that you're doing this, but you could be doing more. There's this like series of dead women who have been piling up, and they all worked at this club that your father runs, and they all died mysteriously the same way that your mother did when you were a little kid. Huh. Makes you think, doesn't it? And her first reaction is, of course, I don't talk to the press. Leave me alone. And Penguin helps with that and pushes her away. And then I think offers her like a cigarette later. Um, so Penguin is her driver at this point. Like, that is how low he is. This is way back in the flashback. Like, Penguin is her driver. So she ends up sort of following that rabbit hole in her mind, and we see it. She cuts back to her mom's death, and there are little claw marks on her mom's hand and blood, and then she sees her dad's hand. She remembers her dad's hand was scratched when he came in the room and found his wife's body, and did sort of like oh no, no, honey, look away. like, oh no, how did I leave that body there? Whoops. Now I have to have a reaction to it that seems genuine. And so once her dad notices that she's sort of in on this, he essentially has her like arrested for doing what he's doing, which is killing off these girls that worked at the club. So he's the hangman, and so she gets arrested and thrown in jail, and he makes the entire family testify, and then basically buys off the judge, just like he owns the cops. So she doesn't even get a trial. Like, we get to a point later on where she's told she has to spend 6 months in Arkham, and then she gets to the 6 month point, and then the psychiatrist has said that she is not mentally stable enough to even stand trial. So to go and talk in her own defense, and her brother is really the only one who gives a shit and is distraught about anything. So we do see that, and the reason why she liked Alberto is because he showed up. When no one else did, he did. And basically everybody else but him signed off on, yeah, she's crazy. She has a history of mental illness, blah blah blah. She does animal cruelty, stuff like that. So just really damning things to make it seem like, of course, none of that is true. She was actually just a perfectly normal girl who lived in this family, and until Summer shows up, she was just daddy's little girl. She was going to inherit the business, and then suddenly Summer actually clued her in on something that she hadn't really ever thought about, and she couldn't shake that. So then we cut to all of these scenes of her in Arkham and the terrible things that have happened to her, and sort of the shell shock reaction she has to even being there. She meets this magpie, who's quirky, kooky, crazy. I feel like this girl could have been in like Orange is the New Black. She's not so like unhinged that you'd be like, nah, she'd be unsafe to have. I feel like she maybe would have been the kooky one on Orange is the New Black if Magpie was there, but she wasn't like that extreme. That's what I was thinking. Like, in terms of like comic book Batman villains, I'm like, I feel like we just scraped the bottom and found what was it, Condiment Man? Wasn't he a thing? I want to say Kite Man, but everybody knows who that is now because of Kite Man. Hell yeah. So she goes to this thing and all these terrible therapy, and we do see shades from from Luke Cage, also from Sons of Anarchy. He's back as Julian. um, he's there, and he's a little uncomfortable with what, because he's not the main doctor at the time. But we do see that Sophia, one of the things, like right before, uh, she passes out after this incident with the penguin and the car crash and everything, is just she calls Julian for help, and Julian does come and help, even though they have this weird dynamic where it's like he's her therapist, and then also they're sleeping together, and then he also had this weird control over her in Arkham. But we do see he makes some comments where he's like, you know, what if she didn't do it? That kind of thing. And then we find out that he did quit his job at Arkham. And of course, but she resents him because she's like, well, you could walk away. And he's like, yeah, but I worked with your brother to help get you out, you know? So I'm a little bit more sympathetic to Julian. I still think the sexual nature of their relationship is weird, but it does seem like there's some goodness there. Like he did see that bad things were happening, and he found a way to try to fix it. So that's what it sounds like anyway. Yeah, but she goes through a lot of shit in there, and then we see her finally exiting Arkham, and she's reunited with the family. And it's basically just her going away dinner. Like the whole family is there at the house, and it's all these people who have gaslit her, all these people who signed off on her craziness. And she has this speech and this toast, and it seems like everything will be what it is. And little Gia's there, the little girl, and everybody's always worried about like, what is she going to do something crazy to Gia? The thing is that like now that we know, it's like all these people know she's not crazy. They all faked it. They all signed off on it. They all knew her before. And part of what they're afraid of is that thing where it's like, oh, we lied about it. So what are you going to do to me now? And we get the answer to the question. She kills basically her whole family. Basically, the entire Falcone family dies in this episode, except for she saves Gia. She spends the night with Gia outside the house, and we're wondering why, because it's sort of like a weird little episode. They have some cake, and they sit outside. And she's like, yeah, I just wanted to sleep under the stars. And Gia's like, my mom told me not to talk to you because you do. And she's like, well, your mom's right. But, we're just gonna sleep here under the stars. I was thrown. What was it? I was thrown into a dungeon with monsters, and I had to fight the monsters. Was the way that she put it. So she wakes up in the morning. She tells Gia to go back to sleep. So Gia's still asleep outside. She goes in the house, and like everyone is dead. Like all of the underlings, all the family members, Luca. Gia's mom Carla is dead. Like everybody's dead now except Johnny. She left Johnny's window open, and she walks in the room. She's got a gun, and the episode ends on, Johnny, we need to talk. And he, of course, he doesn't even know what's outside the room. Like at that point, so we've had now two like mic drop endings. We've had the one with Penguin, and now we're like, how are you going to come out of that? And then we have, well, if I can't be in charge of the Falcone family, no one can be in charge of the Falcone family. There won't be a Falcone family, because basically she is the only remaining Falcone, and Gia, I guess. I don't think Gia's going to help her run the adorable little like 6-year-old girl is not gonna suddenly become a huge part of the crime boss family. It'll be interesting to see though, does she raise Gia? Like is she that I'm sort of intrigued about. Is she gonna take Gia in? Because Gia is now an orphan. Gia has no parents anymore, but also she seems to take this kindness and warmth towards this little girl in, but the realization is that at some point she'll be older. Gia will grow up, and Gia will be like, you killed my parents. So it's like an eventual revenge thing that would happen. So I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do with GM, but um, yeah, Johnny's the only one that's left alive. Unfortunately, it would have been, you know, I was kind of hoping. His character's such a prick. I was kind of hoping that Johnny was also dead. But anyway, so we'll see what happens next episode. But I love this episode. It dealt with mental health and gave us a great backstory on Sophia. Kristen Milioti was superb, just absolutely like transcendent in this episode. Just such a great performance. Very well written. I didn't mind Mark Strong as Carmine. He's just not John Turturro. So it's just like it's the problem with the person who did it before you was like perfection, and you're just not that. But I love Mark Strong as an actor, so at least they tried to get somebody who they felt like they were punching above their weight to get for this role. So they tried to get somebody who was close to John Turturro's level, but not on John Turturro's level. And the thing is that they're younger. Like their flashbacks are when he's younger, so you can't go older. Because obviously somebody like De Niro would have been an interesting choice, but then he's older than Turturro, so it's like, where do you go? I think Mark Strong was probably maybe the best that they could get, ish. Um, so that's it. Maybe Bobby Cannavale would have been a good. He usually plays a decent. I don't know if he can be mean enough to be that though. I don't know. He was pretty mean in Blonde. Maybe Bobby. I think people sleep on Bobby Cannavale a lot. I really loved him in Ezra, and I know he can play this type of role. Maybe he would have felt a little bit more natural as a Italian crime boss than Mark Strong, who I don't think is Italian at all. So, uh, yeah. So that's the Penguin. Once again, excellent audio description by Dakota Green. I think what she's writing is fantastic. Been loving a lot of the stuff that she's been writing lately. Opposite, aside from just the Penguin. So, I will be back next week. I'm giving this week's episode of The Penguin an A, even with the recasting, because Kristen Milioti's performance warrants it. This is her FYC moment. This is her Emmy moment. This is the episode that gets her the nomination. She's stunning. Absolutely stunning. Gorgeous. She makes up for all those people who were trolling her because they were like, wait a minute. She's the mother in How I Met Your Mother? Like, this girl started off sort of like on a negative with like a group with like a fan base that were unwilling to accept the fact that she was the mother. Like they were talking about the whole time, and that it wasn't like one of the other characters. That no, Kristen Milioti was this new cast introduction towards the end of How I Met Your Mother. So yeah, she's moved on from that into bigger and better things, and this will get her bigger and better things offered too, because now people will be like, damn girl, you can fucking act. So I'm excited for her future. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.